Okay. Sorry, you can get started whenever you want.
Okay, I call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We'll now take attendance.
Yeah. Commissioner Amanda. Commissioner Liam. Not present. Commissioner Livia.
Present.
Commissioner Lisa. Commissioner Neal.
Present.
Commissioner Reyna.
Here.
Commissioner Madden.
Here.
Commissioner Samantha.
Here.
Commissioner Zara.
Here.
Commissioner Collis. Commissioner Rita.
Here.
Commissioner Zoe.
Here.
Commissioner Zubin.
Present.
And Julie.
Okay, so now we're gonna approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was September 12th. So
Can I get a motion?
can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
I second.
Okay.
And then it goes to roll call. Raise your hand for aye. Wait, no. Commissioner Amanda.
Aye.
Commissioner Liam. Commissioner Olivia.
Aye.
Commissioner Lisa. Commissioner Neal.
Aye.
Commissioner Reyna.
Aye.
Commissioner Madden. Commissioner Samantha.
Aye.
Commissioner Zara.
Aye.
Commissioner Rio.
Aye.
Commissioner Zoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Zubin.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Julie.
Okay, the minutes from September 12th have been approved. Now we're gonna move on to oral requests. Are there any oral requests? No oral requests. Any public comments? Any announcements? Public comments again. We're now gonna go over old business. What's this old business? No, old business. Okay, now we're gonna move on to new business.
I'd like to welcome TCS here to over our social media presentation as well.
Yes. Bear with me while I get the screen recording.
You guys all have the slides in front of you that you can take notes on if you'd like, or any questions down that you think of.
Okay. So this is going to be just a brief overview of social media, and hopefully you'll be able to apply it for the youth commission and any of your events that you have coming up. We'll dive into key principles of branding and communication to create a consistent voice for your youth commission, and you could possibly use it in projects for high school. And then I've heard that some of you are going into college next year, so you'll definitely be able to use this in your group projects in college. So on the agenda, we'll start off with goals and priorities, and then we'll go into branding, strategic communications, and building the message. And so I kind of want to make this an interactive presentation. You guys can take notes, but if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, or shout it out if you have any questions. I want it to be more conversational, so if you have an opinion that you'd like to interject, feel free to do so. All right, so we'll just go into who I am. I am the Communications and Public Engagement Coordinator for the City of Campbell. I'm a shared position between the PD and the city, so I do 50-50. I do all the PD communications and the city side as well. And on the city side, that includes public works, community development, city manager's office, recreation. Although recreation does a lot of their own communications, we team up and make sure that we have consistency across the board. So my job consists of wearing many hats, but my 4 main functions are community outreach, which consists of events, providing support for other departments when they have community outreach that they'd like to implement. And then I also do website management, which I am the webmaster for the city, and I keep a consistent voice throughout each department. So each department is responsible for their own pages. However, I manage the overall consistency of it. And then I also manage social media, which includes, I believe the city has 19 different accounts. I don't post on all 19. Some of them are recreation, one of them is the youth commission. But I do oversee all 19 and making sure that we're abiding by our best practices and the policy that we have in place. And then I also do crisis communication. So if there's ever a PD incident, whether that's maybe a fire, which is more of a fire incident, but sometimes we'll have road blockage, or any type of barricade incidents, I'll be reporting on that and making sure I'm communicating with our media and our community members and keeping them updated on all the necessary advisories that comes with an incident, as well as if we ever have a natural disaster such as an earthquake, I would be responding as our public information officer. And then, or if we have an instance like COVID, I will be working with our county PIOs and making sure that everything is staying consistent as well and being pushed out to all of our community members. Any questions so far? All right, so we'll jump into goals and priorities. So what you see on social media is just the tip of the iceberg, whether that's the social media post or even if you see a flyer when you're walking around and you see a flyer posted somewhere, you see that graphic, or you're watching TV and you see a commercial or an ad. That's the tip of the iceberg for what goes into actually putting one of those together. And so it's only a small portion of what goes behind each message. At the bottom of the iceberg, you have many aspects, which include goals, priorities, branding, communication. And then you also have the visual effects, which would be the graphic design, the videography, if it's a commercial, or photography, if you're including any type of images. So there's a lot more to just posting on social media, taking a picture and posting on social media. If you want to create a voice for your youth commission, it's all about creating that brand and a strategic communication. So we'll go into Campbell's Community Engagement Strategic Plan. This is what I go by when I'm creating different campaigns or different posts and helping other departments. We always like to reflect on this initial strategic plan to start with. That's kind of a good foundation of where to start. And for the city of Campbell, it's a community where our stakeholders are well informed about community issues and programs, clear and effective communication between the city organization and the Campbell community, and participation of residents and businesses in government activities. So here's where you guys will get a little bit interactive. Yeah.
Who would you say are stakeholders?
I'll get into that a little bit farther down the line, but that's a great question, and we'll dive deep into that. But for now, let's start with the goals. And so as the youth commission, who can tell me what your goals are for this year?
We want to get our social media like farther out there so we get more participation.
Perfect. And what else?
Yeah, basically increase turnout in our events and especially like increase youth outreach.
youth outreach, perfect. Anything else?
It's not like particular for this year, but like overall, just increase youth participation in like more civics and like government activities and get them to be more interested.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great goals. Any other ones that you can think of? You can have multiple goals pertaining to different aspects of the youth commission. They don't have to all surround social media or outreach. Are there any other goals you can think of? No? Okay. So I also heard that your theme for this year, or one of your themes is We Love Campbell. Is that correct? And there's a committee for that? Yeah, that's right. And so what would this committee be doing?
Maybe kind of wanted to just find different spots in Campbell, like for example, the movie house, because I think I just wanted to like share kind of like want to put some pictures and put it online as well as share some like information about it. And I know that you can, I think you can change the Ainsley house, so maybe details on that. Like we're learning to things in Campbell that people might not know about.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Love that. So we'll definitely have time at the end too to brainstorm a little bit more on how we could develop that committee and turn it into actionable items. And so then from there, now that we kind of have a brief overview of our goals, we'll talk about branding. So once we get into, or when we get into branding, there's many key principles or many principles that you can pull from, but there's about 8 key principles that kind of remain at the forefront, and that would be your reputation, which is what your community thinks of you, your track record, are you a reliable source, that type of thing for reputation. Then there's your logo, your colors, there's fonts that go along with that, tagline if you have one, your name, your voice, that's like your tone of voice or how you present yourself, and then your visual style, which is everything rolled into one, your aesthetics. So if you're on Instagram, you see that some Instagrammers or influencers, they have a different aesthetic to their page. And so some cities will have their own visual style for that as well. And so then we're going to go into the 4 pillars of branding. And your key principles all fit under one of these pillars, which is identity, purpose, relevance, and trust. And we'll dive deep into each one of these. So, okay. So identity is the visual language of a brand. It helps your community recognize who you are. So when they see a graphic or a flyer, they immediately know who that flyer or graphic came from. If you don't have any type of visual identity, and it doesn't say on there that it's Campbell Youth Commission or City of Campbell, they might not know where to go to get more information, and then your flyer's stuck as is. If you're wanting more community members to join your meeting or to come to your event, and there isn't more information where they can get that, then you want to make sure that you implement that in your next flyer. And so, if you can see from a few examples that I put on here, you have the City of Campbell logo, which is our tree, and then our tagline, which is the Orchard City. And then you have, I put on here the Youth Commission logo, which this is still the Youth Commission logo, right? Wanted to make sure. And then I also included Campbell Police Department image. And as you can see that from this image right here, the Officer of the Year image, there's no logo. It doesn't say City of Campbell. However, you can tell that it is a police graphic. And if you're familiar with the City of Campbell, you'll notice those are the colors that we use. That's the font that we use. So it still resembles Campbell in a way, even though it doesn't completely say City of Campbell. And if you zoom in, you might be able to read it on his badge, but it doesn't specifically state Campbell Police Department. And then I've included on here a color palette, a suggested color palette that you can use for further, for future flyers or any type of graphics that you do. And I just pulled the lime green and the blue color or the teal color from your logo. That way it kind of keeps it consistent that you're always using the same colors. And then I also included the green that we used in our City of Campbell logo and the blue that we use as well in City of Campbell and the police department and throughout the city. And then you pick fonts as well that you'd like to use consistently. And you can use any font on your flyers, but I like to stick to about 3 fonts that I circulate throughout all our graphics. And the 2 main fonts that I use are, I'm forgive me if I say this wrong, Montserrat and Impact. But we have 2 other fonts that I use as well. So you can have as many fonts as you want, but you keep it consistent and use those throughout all of your graphics. And then a tip is create your own style, branding style guide to reference when you're creating a graphic. So you can all go back if it's a different person creating a graphic each time, you can reference that branding guide and pull from that. That way you kind of can keep a consistency throughout all your graphics. So who are you and what makes you unique? So we'll start off with, who are you as a whole? Not a trick question. Super simple. Yes, super simple. And now what makes you unique?
We represent the youth of Campbell and we advise the city council on youth-related matters.
Awesome. And what makes you unique from a youth commission in Saratoga?
We serve specifically the Campbell community and Campbell community youth.
What else? This one you can think outside the box. So if you're at a youth conference with all the other youth commissions, what would make Campbell Youth Commission stand out over all the other ones?
I guess we're a little bit smaller than the other ones. We have term limits, while they really don't. And we have shorter terms, so I guess you see more fresh faces.
Okay.
Our resources,
What was that?
are different, like we have the Ainsley House.
Okay, yeah, exactly. You have history to pull from, say the Youth Commission in San Jose. They're a lot bigger and they may have historical buildings. But in Campbell, that's what we pride ourselves on, is our historical buildings, our history of being an orchard city, having the orchards that we used to have here. That's part of our culture, our history. Can you think of anything else?
Continuing on the history thing, we have the, what is it, the water, like,
The water tower?
you have the water
Yes,
tower
yeah.
downtown.
Mm-hmm. So we have that iconic water tower, which is included on our,
For the cities.
yeah. So it's not part of our logo, but we use it as an icon. And we use it, so when you see that water tower in a lot of our graphics, you know, like that is Campbell, because San Jose doesn't have that water tower. Any of the other surrounding cities don't have any water towers that are such a staple in the community. We also have buildings like the Prune Yard, where if you see that in our skyline, you realize that is City of Campbell. And there's a lot of different features like that within Campbell that you can pull from to kind of gravitate around your culture. So then we are going to go into the next pillar, which is purpose, and that's the why behind your brand. It's why are you communicating to your stakeholders? And this is your chance to provide beneficial information to your audience, providing any type of resources that are available. I think someone mentioned earlier that you wanted to show them that the Ainsley House is there in our community where you can visit, you can learn more about the history and different services like that are provided by the city. And so there's plenty of resources that are available as well that you can help elevate that message to within the city so that you can share with your constituents and your age group, since your audience is particularly high school students, and we have 8th graders here as well, right?
Yeah.
What's the age range? 14?
Is anyone 8 through 12?
8 through 12.
So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's the perfect, your perfect audience to gear your information towards. And let's see, so why would you be communicating to your audience?
So they'll come to our events.
Yeah, exactly. And what else?
So they know more information, like that one, that's, you want to protect your personal information, that's spreading information.
Right. It doesn't have to be specifically about events or services. You're just trying to share the information, your knowledge with the greater community and being sure to pass that on. So if it's, for example, the protect your personal identification, this is sharing that we received a lot of calls about scams and people getting their private information stolen from them. And so what we want to do is we want to be sure that this doesn't happen again to other community members. So we're sharing this PSA of protect your information. If you don't know that person on the phone or at your door, don't share any of your personal information with them. Even if they say your father's in jail or your cousin's in jail or you're going to get an F on your next report card because you didn't share this picture on social media, be sure to ignore it, because those types of scams are out there and they're just wanting you to give more information to them so they can steal from you. And then, oops. So my tip is find ways that you're different from other agencies or youth commissions, and this can help you connect to your audience. And so ways like we said, we have like the historical background, the water tower, different services that are specific to our youth and our demographics, and use that to your advantage when you're sharing the information online. All right, so now we're going to go into the next pillar, which is relevance. And this is the glue behind the brand, and it helps you connect with your community. And this content should align with your values and your goals. And the main takeaways from this is you want to make sure you keep it consistent. And that is, you're not posting once and then you disappear for a year. You post one great post that has valuable information and then you're gone. So you want to make sure you keep that information consistent, and whether it's once a month or a couple times a month, you're still making sure you're staying relevant. And then you also want to make sure it's timely. So you're not posting about Christmas events in July or Halloween events in January. You want to make sure that it's timely information, relevant to your community. And then you want to also keep it factual and just make sure that it's information that's unbiased or impartial, because as a city representative, you want to make sure that everything is impartial. And that means you don't have sides to a story. You're not trying to sway your audience to vote a particular way or to believe a particular belief. You just want to make sure that it's factual and you're giving them the information they need to make the decision on their own. And then also helpful. Is this information helpful? Are you making sure that whatever information you're wanting your audience to know, is that going to be stated in your caption or in your graphic somewhere? And then keep it unique, creative, and fun. Find ways to work around the box to get your content noticed. And that could be, for example, I'm not sure if it will play, but we made a really quick GIF of an officer throwing paper into a recycle bin. And this was for Earth Day. And it's, as a police department, you don't think, okay, you should recycle. But it is a municipal code violation if you litter. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of the community that you love. And we want to remind you, don't litter and recycle. So that's just a quick little PSA. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but you're capturing the audience by thinking outside the box. It's not just a graphic with words or a picture. This one has a little bit of animation, so you can feel free to get creative and think outside the box. So my question for you is, why should your audience pay attention to you?
Because we're young.
Okay, and why else?
We're creating events for them.
Okay.
Because we have up-to-date information to offer about city information that no one else could offer.
There you go. Yeah. Anything else?
I feel like we need to specifically, kind of as we've already said, play off the fact that we are teenagers. We're just like everybody else. We're trying to present information that, I mean, they'd have to hear from adults other than us, and they probably don't want to hear that from adults.
Yeah, exactly. So you, for being part of the youth commission, you have the inside scoop of what goes on within the city. So you can be the liaison between your friends, your it's not coworkers. What are you? Classmates. Like, what are they called? It's totally good. Your classmates. You're that bridge that connects what you know to what they don't know. Does that make sense? And then a quick little tip is what you guys can do is create a content calendar. And this is, you know, there's national days for everything now. There's National Donut Day, National Smile If You're Happy Day, different days of the week or something. And so you can look at that calendar and then try to create content around that. And so if you know that it's National Pizza Day coming up and you have the pizza and politics coming up, then you can create a post for that and say, hey, it's National Pizza Day, come celebrate with us at this event. And you can have different content gearing towards different events. Doesn't have to always be that same flyer trying to promote the same event. Feel free to use multiple avenues of different content to kind of reach different communities or different friend groups. Some people might like reels more than a flyer. So try to get familiar with what people are gravitating towards in your age group. And then and also one thing I'd like to know is pay attention to the current events around you as well, and make sure that if there's something serious going on in today's current events, that you're not posting something opposite of that. So if it's a somber day because something sad happened and your post is promoting joy and fun, try to save that for the next day or recreate your caption so that it reflects those current events. So it's you're not showing any disrespect, or you're showing that you are aware of what's going on as well. Right, oops. And then the fourth pillar is trust. And this is building trust by engaging through your brand. And trust creates a positive perception of you. And how you can build trust is having two-way conversation or two-way communication. And that's not just about pushing out information and then turning off your comments or not reading your comments or not responding to comments. It's also about listening to your audience. So if you post something and then you have a comment on there asking a question, if you don't answer it, then they're gonna realize, okay, they're not responsive, or they're not, they don't have the information that I'm looking for, so I'm not gonna turn to them for that information. So you wanna make sure that you're opening that door of two-way communication and answering any questions that you may see, whether that's on social media or in person at events, or when you're hanging out with your friends and they have a question about the city of Campbell. And if you don't have the right answer, that's okay. You can always let them know, hey, I can look into that for you. I don't have that answer, but I'm willing to look into it for you. I'll get back to you. And that's always an okay answer as well. And then also correcting false information. So if you know that there's something going on within the city regarding any type of event or any type of service, and someone mentions, whether that's on social media or in person, that there's this event and it's on Thursday and you know that it's on Friday, then you can correct them and say, actually, this event is on Friday, blah, blah, blah. So just making sure that you correct it, and that's different ways of building trust within your community. Yes.
Do you think one way we could build trust is like collaborating with other city accounts? Like I know Sergio Lopez, he's very active, or like Councilman Lopez, or like other city agents, like maybe they could add us or we could add them.
Yeah, so collaborations help build trust, and it also helps you grow your audience to their audience as well when you're collaborating. So that's a great way of building more rapport with your community. And then it's another couple of ways is to be transparent, is to making sure that, and when I say this is more on the city side, is we want to provide this information. It's not hidden somewhere where you have to dig for it. This is out in the open where we're presenting it to you. And you want to make sure that you present it in ways that, again, it's factual, unbiased, impartial information. And then you also want to be authentic. It's always a person on the other side of the screen or the flyer that created it. So you want to be authentic to who you are. You are 8th graders and high school students. You don't have to create posts as if you're the president of the United States. Be authentic to who you are, and that will capture your audience the most. And your audience is your constituents, your counterparts. And so a tip for you guys are create posts that encourage engagement. So not just about, so this is thinking outside the box, and this is utilizing your Instagram stories to take polls, or utilizing reels to create a trend, or to piggyback off of a trend, or creating reels to answer questions that you know that a lot of students have had about different events, or even I heard a couple of you are going to college, so maybe having a question and answer session of how to apply for college, or tips and tricks for applying to college, different avenues to get that, to get your community to engage more with your content. So, did you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you say having a more like people-facing account encourages trust?
Yes, yes. So they can see the person behind the account, and it doesn't have to be one person. So I run the social media, but my face is never on social media or on our city or police department accounts. However, there are many faces on the accounts, and it's building that human interaction to know that there is somebody behind your account. It's not just a robot creating everything. So that's a great question, yes. Okay, so my question for you is, how can you engage with your audience?
Like spread, like, I mean, for us, like spread it at our schools and like, I mean, it's not social media, but like,
Yeah.
like all the schools also have like social media accounts and so, like collaboration. with
Yeah.
Other media.
Yeah. Yeah, and this isn't just specific to social media. It's how can you engage with your audience outside of social media as well, or through social media? I think I saw your hand up.
I guess have a dialogue with them, like whether that's, doing a Q&A or like responding to comments, just having a conversation so people trust the account.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Like creating some sort of campaign around like what we know Campbell is known for. Like, for example, we know that Campbell has like a lot of dogs in the community, for instance. So like you could do some sort of fun Instagram reel sort of thing where like you were interviewing dogs or yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and you're appealing to your audience as well because you know that they like dogs. And so if you're creating a campaign that surrounds the dogs and your pets, then that kind of captures your audience and it brings them in as well. You're creating that space where they feel like they're yeah. Communicating that out to your audience. And so we have 8 key principles of strategic communications. We have our internal communications, which would be internally to your stakeholders, internal stakeholders, and then external. And the internal would be between all of you guys, or it could be internally within the city, or internally within all of the youth commissions, depending on how you look at it. And then externally would be your community members, your classmates, other community members in other cities as well. And then you have your outbound message, which is what you are sharing with the public. And then your inbound is those questions and comments that you're receiving inbound. And those are the questions on your social media post, or somebody approaches you and asks you a question. That's an inbound communication. And then we have marketing campaign or marketing, which would be any type of graphics, any advertisements that you would do. And then campaigns are specific to, or marketing can be in campaigns. So those campaigns are the bigger picture. You create multiple campaigns to advertise and market different events for your commission. And then we have our channels, which is what we use to disseminate that information. And that could be your social media, your website, any type of press, media, or television, newsletters that go out. Those are all different channels of ways to communicating to your stakeholders. And then we will jump into who your stakeholders are. And your stakeholders are your audience. And the letters are pretty small in here, and I should have made this bigger. But there are a number of audience or stakeholders that you would be reaching through your content, your flyers, your events. And those external stakeholders are your Campbell residents. And that could be people within neighborhood association, HOAs, which are your homeowners associations, and prospective residents. And so looking at it from your standpoint, each of these neighborhood associations or HOAs, they could be parents to high school students and eighth graders. So they can be your audience as well. You don't have to just gear it towards your audience specifically. You can try to reach the greater audience with hopes that they would communicate that to them as well. And then you have business owners and employees. There are external stakeholders, visitors and tourists. If you talk to a lot of non-residents that visit Campbell, they love the Campbell downtown. They love the events that we have during Christmas time. They love our farmers markets, all those different aspects that bring non-residents, non-business owners into Campbell are your audience as well. And then you also want to remember the access and functional needs group, which are, those are a variety of different groups, and that could be the physical and developmental disabled or intellectual disabled. And then we have chronic conditions or injuries. So someone that's in a wheelchair or someone that is not able to see and they have to use a seeing eye dog or a walking stick. Those are all people that might not be able to see your social media post, but you want to make sure that they're still included in your outreach, because they're students, they could be students as well in those cases. And then there's older adults, which that's not your audience. But for me, say I'm creating a crisis communications and there's an earthquake. Not a lot of older adults are on, and when I say older adults, I'm thinking elderly. That might be in an elderly home or a care facility. They might not be on social media. So how can I reach them without a social media post? And that's how you think of it from that standpoint. How do you reach the audience that isn't on social media? And then another few external stakeholders is the media. And that's, again, during different incidents, there will be media that reaches out to me and talks about and would like more information about specifics on an incident. And then you have local and regional government and partnering agencies. So those can be your youth commissions and other agencies. That can be your external audience as well. If you're creating an event specific for youth commissions and you want all of them to come and join you, then that's part of your audience. Then you can look at also nonprofit and community groups. Those are your external stakeholders that you can partner with as well. Educational organizations, and then also regional influencers. And that's not just the influencers that are on social media. It's your elected officials or different, they may not be elected officials, but they can be the city manager of other regions in your area that have a great influence on their community. And then you have your internal communications or internal stakeholders, which could be employees, but in your case, it would be classmates or your internal group here. Any volunteers that you might work with, that can be considered internal as well. Any questions as far as who your audience is? Wide variety of, everybody is essentially your audience, but you want to pinpoint who your specific audience is. And then here is our demographics for Campbell. So we have about 44,000 as of our last census, and about 21.5% of residents in Campbell are under the age of 18. So that's the percentage that you are gearing your content towards. And that's a pretty big chunk, 21%. So you know that you have a greater audience to reach than just the followers on your page. And it's about how do you get your audience that isn't following you on social media to come to your events. So we're putting together the branding and the communication. So we talked about branding, which is how your community sees you. And we talked about your communication out to your stakeholders, and that is how your community hears you. And when you put those together, it creates your message and your value proposition. So your value proposition is what the community thinks of you. And the message is what the community hears from you. And so we'll dive in a little deeper in building your message. So from here, we'll talk about the best practices that you can implement while you're creating your graphics and your messages. And each post or flyer or campaign that you create should focus on your primary goal of building community trust and your goal as a youth commission. And my strategic recommendation is to keep in mind these 6 key principles, which is focus on your audience, make sure you know who your audience is and gear your content towards your specific audience, cultivate the brand, so make sure you're implementing your branding style guide, encourage engagement, don't just push messages out and leave it alone and not look at it. Create that interaction with your community. Factual and timely information, consistent messaging, and fold everything into the bigger picture of why are you creating this graphic? Is it because you're wanting more people to come to the event, or is it because you want more people to learn about the specific programs and services available to them? So you can get very specific onto what your bigger picture is. And now we have best practices to follow when you're posting. Your tone and voice, you want to always make sure you are knowledgeable and trustworthy, but also keep it friendly and conversational. It doesn't have to be strict, straight to the point. You can make it fun, put some enthusiasm and characteristics into it. When you are creating your captions, always remove the I or my. So you don't want to say, I created this event, please join me. You want to make sure you say, we, Campbell Youth Commission, created this event. We would love for you to join us. And that just takes away, it unifies the voice, and it's creating that there's not just one person behind it. It's everybody as a whole that makes this youth commission run the way it goes. And then when and how often. So you can use your Instagram insights to track which posts do better than others. And you can try to see, okay, what did we do this time that got 200 likes or 200, it had 200 interactions. What did we do? Did we include dogs? People love dogs. When you include them in posts, sometimes they just take off. Or what did we do differently that gravitated to our audience? So you want to make sure you look at that insight. And it's not just the data that Instagram gives you. You can look at it from other standpoints as well. And then your post frequency, like I mentioned before. Actually, no, I didn't mention this before, sorry. Your post frequency will depend on the platform. But since you're just on Instagram, you can aim for about 1 to 2 times a day. And that's not including weekends. You don't have to do weekends. And if you do it maybe 3 times a week, that's fine too. But you can aim to maybe do a story post one day and an actual image post the other day. It doesn't have to be the same type of content every day, but as long as you're keeping your voice out there and keeping it consistent, then you'll start to gain more of a reach and an audience. And that kind of without going into the deep of algorithms, Instagram wants you to post more. And so if you take a 3-month hiatus and you post once, their algorithm might push you farther down. So the more frequency that you post, the more likely you're gonna move up on the totem pole of the algorithm. And tagging and hashtags. So you can tag affiliates of your agencies and different organizations that you're working with. Make sure you tag them in the post, because a lot of the times there's so many posts when you're scrolling through that they might not see that you posted about them. So if you tag them in your post, they'll get that notification and they can like it, share it to help expand your reach on that post. And a quick tip is avoid tagging individuals or personal accounts. So if you have your own personal Instagram, avoid tagging those so that it shows that you aren't, what am I trying to say? You aren't the only voice of the city, or if you want to remain anonymous and you don't want people to know that you're affiliated with the city of Campbell, then you can still remain anonymous. And that's for your safety as well, because you never know what kind of trolls are out there. And you want to make sure that there is some privacy to those that you work with or your individual accounts. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm good.
And the exception for that would be elected officials, obviously, because they sometimes have their own pages, like Sergio or Mayor Resnikoff. They all have their own individual elected official pages, so you can tag those and post as well.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. So we're not really supposed to like do some stuff, because it's like, we're not supposed to endorse people or something like that.
Right, exactly.
But it's like, I don't know, like what is considered an official account and what is considered like a personal account, like especially for people who aren't elected.
That's a good question. So if you are working on an event with a specific person who has it's a personal account, but they use it for business purposes, then that would be an exception. If it's a personal account where they just post their personal life on there, I would avoid tagging any of those accounts on there.
In a similar, sort of similar question, has the Youth Commission Instagram, has that been operated like as a business account or as like a personal account? Because if it's a business account, wouldn't it be beneficial to use like a boosting of a post to reach a larger audience?
You can use boosting. However, first you need a budget for that. And sometimes the boosting might not reach the audience that you're looking for. Unless you're trying to reach a greater audience. The boosting, that's hit and miss. So it depends on your content.
Mhm.
It depends on what it is that you're trying to, is it an event that you're doing? Is it applications that you're trying to get in? You want to make sure that you're able to track if that boosting was beneficial to your outcome. So you don't want to just boost it and then not know if it helped in the long run. Did someone have a question over here? Okay. And let's see. So that was about tagging. And then you have hashtags. And so you want to, before using a hashtag, you want to search it first to make sure that it's appropriate for what you're using it for. If it's a hashtag that somebody else is using and maybe there's inappropriate content on their end, I would avoid using that hashtag. And that's more so any hashtag could probably have inappropriate content on the other side. But if it's not the majority, when you're scrolling through and you see 20 different photos of that content, then if it doesn't have a majority of that content, it should be okay. You just want to make sure that you browse through it before using it. And you want to avoid using too many hashtags as well, because then it comes off as you're just trying to go viral, or it's not coming off as authentic as it may seem. And so you want to make sure that you're utilizing those hashtags to your advantage, and they apply to what you are creating. So whether it's an event, and it's an event about pizza and politics, you're not hashtagging dog and cat and people of Instagram, or you want to make sure that it applies to the event that you're working on. And that goes into our graphic best practices. So you want to make sure when you're posting on social media or anywhere for that matter, whether it's a flyer, you want to have graphics. You don't want it to just be text. So if it's a flyer and it's all text, it probably won't get as many, it won't be as attention grabbing as it's colorful and it has photos and different icons than if it was just text. So you want to make sure that whether you're creating flyers or videos or a social media post, always include a visual graphic. And to create eye-catching graphics, make sure that it's appealing, visually appealing, and it appeals to your brand as well. And less is more. You don't want to overbear it with too much information, too much text, too many colors, too many fonts. Less is more. So pick a good solid group of texts or colors that you want to work with, and work along your campaign with that. So you create one campaign and it has your own color palette and your own text, so that you know when you see that graphic, that is revolving around that campaign. And you can use icons as well, but just make sure that it's limited to what you are discussing. You don't want it to be random pictures of flowers when it's a pizza and politics. Kind of thing. And I suggest no more than 3 types of font on one flyer or one graphic. You want to keep it clean and concise but you can keep it visually appealing with multiple fonts. But once you start using 5 or 6 different fonts, then it might lose track of where you want your audience to go. And then again, you can use colors that align with your brand for your message, or you can have your own color palette for specific events. You don't always have to use your youth commission branding color palette for every single flyer that you create. And then here are a few resources that you can use to building your message. I typically build my graphics and videos through Adobe platforms. However, there are many different platforms that you can use and apps that you can use that are free. And that includes Canva, Adobe Creative Cloud. There's Splice, which is a video editing app. There's Adobe Lightroom, and I like to use that to kind of adjust photos so that if you take a photo and maybe the lighting is a little bit off, you can use Adobe Lightroom to brighten it or change the exposure. And that way it kind of keeps a consistency so that all your photos can have that same feel and visual feel. And yeah.
Are you able to make graphics on Adobe Creative Cloud? I thought that was just like storage.
Adobe Creative, I think they changed it. It is called Adobe.
I know it's like Photoshop.
Adobe Express.
Express.
Adobe Express. Sorry, forgot they changed the name. So it's Adobe Express. Yeah, Adobe Creative Cloud is where you store all of those. But Adobe Express is kind of like Canva.
And it's free.
And it's free, yeah. You just have to create an account. Canva's nice because you can create a team and they have the free version and you can share your graphics with each other and make tweaks. So that one is a nice option and you can add your color palettes on there and your logos and keep everything in one place so that everyone can utilize the same features. And then you have, there's another one, CapCut. I just recently found. Let me double check.
I think that's for videos.
Yeah, CAPCUT. So if you're interested in creating reels, that's a great app to use to implement different songs, and you can cut it and paste it how you want it. And there are many other apps out there that you can trial and error. All right, so what is next? What I'd like you all to do is to brainstorm different campaigns or different ideas for your We Love Campbell theme. And what do you want? Focus on what you want your audience to know. And so you can create visuals or create ideas of what you want your visuals to be, whether it's a video of somebody running or a video of somebody visiting the Ainsley house or a photo of the Ainsley house. Jot those down and just brainstorm different ideas that you can put together. You can even draft captions. And then when you get all of that done, you can create a content calendar of different, and you want to keep a variety of different content that you can push out to your community. So whenever I say a campaign, you want to make sure that your campaigns are staying consistent to each other, but that doesn't mean you have to post them back to back to back. It can be one campaign, you post one day, and then the next day you post something completely different. And then maybe 3 days later, you post about that campaign again. Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be 5 posts in a row about that campaign. You can have a variety of different posts. So get together or talk amongst yourself of what you want to share for the We Love Campbell.
I have our original notes for when we were kind of going over it. I have like locations, Ainsley House, Water Tower, the museum / like fire station. I have the community center because it was originally a high school. I have some stores, Recycled Bookstore, Snake and Butterfly, Blue Line. I think we were thinking more in downtown Campbell, but then we could also do something for Prune Yard. I have organizations too, but we didn't get that far in like different Campbell organizations.
Oh, so that's a great start. So I think from there, you can even brainstorm. It doesn't all have to happen right now. You brainstorm as you go and you find different features of Campbell that you love specifically, and you share that with each other. Like, what is it that you love about Campbell? And you want to share that with your community. So think about that when you go home or the next time you visit somewhere and you recall on something of why you love Campbell. And that's what you want to share. And that kind of creates relevance with your community because they may feel the same way about that store that you visit or the farmer's market event that you went to. You think about why you specifically love Campbell and then how that applies to your greater audience. Any input? Anyone have any input you'd like to share?
I think we sort of have to ask ourselves, like, what makes Campbell special and unique to us? So I think, there's like historical, like buildings of historical significance. There's like, commercial, like businesses. And there's also like the parks and all the outdoor space we have. And then also like community partnerships and like events.
Yeah. And think about what partnerships you can utilize as the youth commission to help expand your brand and your audience. So when you talk about history of Campbell, you can use the Campbell Museum, the Ainsley House and Campbell Museum as a resource and partner with them and create some content with them. And then you can share it on your Instagram page and they can share it on their Instagram page. And then as a city, we can share it as well, since both of these organizations fall under the umbrella of the city of Campbell. So think of those partnerships that you can reach out to help expand your brand. All right, if there's no other
Here's what I found.
questions or comments, then that takes us to our last slide, which is thank you very much for sitting here on your Monday evening, listening to me discuss social media. And if you ever have any questions, you can utilize me as a resource. My number and my email are down or on your slide. I don't know if it's too small to see. You might want to write it down. Too small. But feel free to email me, reach out. And I'm here as a resource. And since you are the youth commission of the city of Campbell, feel free to reach out and we can discuss campaigns that you'd want to do and different things so we can share it on our end. Thank you very much.
I this meeting at 7:36 p.m.